My son left me in a nursing home. 1 week later, Widow Boss won the lottery. She had never imagined her life would end like this. Welcome back and enjoy the story. Norma Winters clutched the thin blanket around her shoulders as she gazed out the window of Peaceful Pines retirement home. 3 weeks, 21 days since Todd had dropped her off with a tight smile and promises to visit soon. The hallway outside her small room was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it smothers. The television in the common room buzzed with game shows no one was really watching. She sat by the window, the same one she had sat by every day since her son dropped her off and promised, "Just for a little while, Mum, until things settle." But things never settle when people want you gone. She had only packed a single suitcase. She thought it was temporary. She had given him everything, her trust, her money, her time. When his business almost went under, it was her emergency fund that saved it. When he needed help with the kids, it was her who stepped in. She raised him, lifted him, carried him, and now he wouldn't return her calls. 76 years of life had brought Norma to this, a tiny room with beige walls, a narrow bed and a dresser that held what remained of her belongings. The rest was still in her house, her beautiful house with the garden she had tended for 40 years, now being managed by Todd while she was getting the care she needed. What she needed was her independence, her dignity, the life she had built with her late husband, Victor. The nurses were kind, but she could see it in their eyes. They thought she had no one, that she was just another forgotten woman with a fading mind. But her mind was clear, sharper than they knew. Every day she wrote in her notebook, made calculations, watched patterns, tracked numbers. She had always believed life could change in an instant. That morning, Nurse Patty brought her breakfast, lukewarm oatmeal and a small cup of fruit cocktail, along with her daily medications. "Beautiful day, Mrs. Winters," Patty said, her cheerfulness feeling forced. "Think you might join us for bingo this afternoon?" Norma shook her head, offering a polite smile. "Perhaps tomorrow, dear." Patty nodded, and Norma could see the pity in her eyes. That same look everyone gave her now, the poor old woman abandoned by her son. Once Patty left, Norma reached for the remote and turned on the small television mounted on her wall. The morning news droned on about politics and weather, but Norma wasn't listening. She was waiting for 11:45 a.m., lottery drawing time. She had been playing the same numbers for 37 years, the birth dates of her children, her wedding anniversary. The day Victor passed. Numbers that had shaped her, broken her, built her. At precisely 11:45, the news anchor's face was replaced by the lottery host, a young woman with a brilliant smile and a sequined dress. "Good morning, America. Today's jackpot stands at $325 million. Let's see who the lucky winner might be." The machine whirred, plastic balls bouncing inside like eager fish. The first ball shot up the tube. "5, the host announced. Norma's heart quickened, but she remained still. 12, she reached for her notebook, flipping to the page where she had written her numbers decades ago. 19, her fingers trembled slightly as she ran them down the page. 27, 4 for 4. She had matched 4 numbers before, won a few $100s. Once she had matched 5 and taken home 10,000, but never. 42, Norma's breath caught in her throat. 5 numbers, 1 more. Just 1 more. And the bonus ball, 10! She didn't scream, she didn't jump. She just opened her notebook, where the exact sequence had been written days before. She had been playing the same numbers for 37 years, the birth dates of her children, her wedding anniversary, the day her husband passed, numbers that had shaped her, broken her, built her. She was the sole winner. The prize was enormous, not millions, hundreds of millions. There you have it, folks. Someone out there just became very, very rich. Check those tickets. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Norma sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her notebook open beside her. The world continued to spin. Down the hall, someone coughed. The scent of institutional lunch, some sort of meat with gravy, began to permeate the air, and Norma Winters, forgotten and discarded, sat with the knowledge that she now had more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. A smile, small but determined, crept across her face. For the first time in weeks, she felt something other than despair, something that felt dangerously like hope. If you're enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type 0. It helps me create even better content for you. Continuing. By mid-afternoon, the nursing home was abuzz with the news. Someone had won the lottery, the biggest jackpot of the year. Residents speculated about who the lucky winner might be, dreaming of what they would do with such wealth. Norma listened to their fantasies as she sat in the corner of the common room, her ticket safely tucked inside her crossword puzzle book. "I'd buy a yacht," said Harold, an 82-year-old former accountant. "Always wanted to sail around the world." "I'd give it all to my grandchildren," Martha chimed in, though everyone knew her grandchildren rarely visited. "What about you, Norma?" someone asked. "What would you do with all that money?" She smiled enigmatically. "I'd make things right," she said simply. That evening, after a dinner of overcooked chicken and mushy vegetables, Norma made a phone call from the community. Phone in the hallway. The line rang 3 times before a voice answered. "Law offices of Goldstein and Harper. This is Norma Winters," she said clearly, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "I'd like to make an appointment with Evelyn Harper. It's rather urgent." The receptionist hesitated. "Ms. Harper is quite busy this week, Mrs. Winters. May I ask what this is regarding?" "You may tell her," Norma replied, a glint of steel in her voice, "that I've just won the lottery and I need immediate legal assistance to claim my winnings and update my will." There was a lengthy pause. "Would tomorrow at 9 a.m. work for you, Mrs. Winters?" "Perfectly." Norma hung up the phone, satisfaction warming her chest. As she turned to head back to her room, she nearly collided with Diane Calloway, the director of Peaceful Pines. "Mrs. Winters," Diane said, her professionally compassionate smile firmly in place, "I thought I heard something rather interesting just now. Did I understand correctly that you believe you've won the lottery?" Norma regarded the younger woman coolly. In the 3 weeks she'd been at Peaceful Pines, Diane had spoken to her exactly twice, once during admission and once when. Norma had complained about the temperature in her room. "You heard correctly, Miss Calloway," Norma replied. "I have the winning ticket for today's drawing." Diane's smile stretched wider, revealing too many teeth. "How wonderful. That's just amazing, Mrs. Winters. We should call your son right away to share the good news." "That won't be necessary," Norma said. "I have an appointment with my attorney tomorrow morning. I'll need transportation arranged." Diane nodded eagerly. Of course. We can have our facility car take you wherever you need to go. And perhaps we should move you to one of our premium suites. We have a lovely one that just became available, much more comfortable than the standard rooms." Norma's gaze hardened. "I've been asking for a room with a better view for 3 weeks, Ms. Calloway. You told me none were available and there was a waiting list." Diane had the grace to look embarrassed. "Well, circumstances change, Mrs. Winters. We want all our residents to be comfortable, especially those who might be staying with us long term." "How thoughtful," Norma said, her voice dry as autumn leaves. "But I'll stay where I am for now. Good evening, Ms. Calloway." As Norma walked away, she could feel Diane's gaze burning into her back. News would spread quickly now. By morning, everyone would know. The forgotten widow in room 118 was now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Back in her room, Norma sat on the edge of her bed and reached for the small framed photograph on her nightstand, the only personal touch in the sterile space. Victor smiled back at her, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners, his arm around a younger Norma. The picture had been taken on their 35th anniversary, just 2 years before the cancer took him. "You always said our luck would change, Victor," she whispered to the empty room. "I just wish you were here to see it." She thought of Todd, of how quickly he had moved her into Peaceful Pines after Victor's life insurance money had run out, how he had promised to visit every Sunday, then every other Sunday, then just when he could manage it. 3 weeks without a word. Her hand trembled as she placed the photograph back on the nightstand. Tomorrow everything would change. After 76 years of giving to others, to her husband, to her son, to everyone who needed her, Norma Winters was about to start taking back. The media found out within hours. By the time Norma returned from her meeting with Evelyn Harper, news crews had gathered at the nursing home gates. The staff stood frozen, watching in disbelief as the sleek town car pulled up to the entrance, and Norma emerged, escorted by a sharply dressed woman carrying a leather briefcase. "Mrs. Winters," called one reporter, thrusting a microphone forward, "how does it feel to win over $300 million? Mrs. Winters, what are you planning to do with the money? Mrs. Winters, is it true you're living in a nursing home?" Evelyn stepped forward, shielding her new client. "Mrs. Winters has no comment at this time. She asks that you respect her privacy during this transitional period." The reporters continued shouting questions as Norma and Evelyn made their way into the building. Inside, the atmosphere had completely transformed. Staff members who had barely acknowledged Norma's existence now smiled and nodded as she passed. Residents who had known her for only 3 weeks suddenly claimed deep friendship. And Diane Calloway waited by the front desk, practically vibrating with excitement. "Mrs. Winters, welcome back. I trust your meeting went well?" Without waiting for an answer, she continued, "We've taken the liberty of moving your things to our executive suite. It has a lovely view of the gardens and a private bathroom with a soaking tub. You'll be much more comfortable there." Norma exchanged a glance with Evelyn, who gave a slight nod. "Thank you, Miss Calloway, but that won't be necessary," Norma said. "I won't be staying." Diane's smile faltered. I don't understand. Your son arranged for long-term care." He said, "My son said many things," Norma interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "But circumstances have changed, as you noted yesterday. Ms. Harper and I have made other arrangements." "But where will you go?" Diane asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "You need care supervision." Evelyn stepped forward. "Mrs. Winters has secured a private residence with full-time nursing staff, a chef and security personnel. All her needs will be met in a setting of her choosing." Diane's face fell. "I see. Well, we'll certainly miss you, Mrs. Winters. And should you ever wish to return to Peaceful Pines, we would welcome you with open arms." "How kind," Norma replied, the words coated in ice. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to gather my belongings." She left the nursing home that afternoon in a quiet black car. The same nurse who used to rush her through lunch now helped her with her coat like she was royalty. The director of the facility came out sweating, shaking her hand, begging her to remember them fondly. She said nothing, just nodded politely and walked away. "Are you all right, Mrs. Winters?" Evelyn asked as they pulled away from Peaceful Pines, the reporters scrambling to get final shots of the lottery winner's departure. Norma gazed out the window at the place that had been her prison for 3 long weeks. "I will be," she said softly. "I will be." What comes next? Will Norma find the happiness that has eluded her for so long, or will her newfound wealth bring unexpected challenges? Stay tuned to discover how her life transforms after this incredible twist of fate. The estate was everything Norma had dreamed of during those long, lonely nights at Peaceful Pines. Situated on 5 acres just outside the city, the sprawling Georgian-style mansion had once belonged to a tech entrepreneur who had fallen on hard times. Evelyn's real estate connections had secured it for a fraction of its worth, a quick sale that benefited both parties. As the car pulled through the wrought-iron gates and up the curved driveway, Norma felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and trepidation. This was to be her new home, a palace compared to the cramped room she had left behind, but it was also a symbol of how drastically her life had changed in just 48 hours. "The staff has been vetted thoroughly," Evelyn explained as they approached the front entrance, where a small group of people waited to greet them. "A housekeeper, a cook, a personal assistant, and 2 nurses who will rotate shifts to ensure you have care available 24 hours a day. Security personnel are on the grounds, but will remain discreet." Norma nodded, suddenly feeling overwhelmed. "It's all happening so quickly." Evelyn placed a hand on her arm. "We can scale back if you'd prefer, Mrs. Winters. This is your life now. Everything should be exactly as you want it." Norma straightened her shoulders. "No, this is perfect. I just need time to adjust." The staff greeted her warmly, each introducing themselves with professional courtesy that lacked the obsequiousness she had experienced at Peaceful Pines after her win. These people had been hired to care for a wealthy woman. They didn't know her as the abandoned mother who had suddenly struck it rich. Margaret, the housekeeper, showed her around the mansion. 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a library, a conservatory, a home theater, and a kitchen that would make professional chefs envious. It was too much for one elderly woman, Norma thought. But perhaps that was the point. After being forced into a space barely larger than a prison cell, she now had room to breathe, to move, to live. "And this," Margaret said, opening a set of double doors at the end of the main hallway, "is the master suite." Norma stepped into a room larger than her entire house had been, the house Todd was now managing for her. A king-sized bed faced floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked manicured gardens. A sitting area with plush chairs and a small fireplace occupied one corner. The ensuite bathroom featured a shower large enough for 4 people and a bathtub that resembled a small pool. "Is it to your liking, Mrs. Winters?" Margaret asked. Norma walked to the windows, gazing out at the property that was now hers. Somewhere beyond those gardens, reporters still sought information about the elderly lottery winner. Somewhere in the city, her son continued his life, unaware that his mother had escaped the prison he had placed her in. "It's perfect," she said softly. That evening, Norma dined alone at the massive table in the formal dining room. The chef, a middle-aged man named Daniel, had prepared a meal that made the nursing home food seem like gruel in comparison. Roasted chicken with herbs, vegetables harvested from local farms, and a chocolate souffle that melted on her tongue. As she ate, Norma thought about what came next. The money was secured, a lump sum payment after taxes that still left her with more wealth than she could spend in what remained of her life. Evelyn had set up accounts, investments, trusts. Everything was in order. But what was she to do with herself, with her time, with her future? The answer came to her as she sipped the excellent wine Daniel had paired with her dinner. She would not simply exist in this new life, she would use it to help others like her, use it to make a statement, use it to ensure that what had happened to her would not happen to others. The next morning, Norma called Evelyn with a new mission. A week after leaving Peaceful Pines, she hosted a press conference, not for fame, but for a purpose. She announced the creation of the Victor Winters Foundation, dedicated to supporting abandoned elders, especially those placed in homes by their own children. Standing at a podium in the ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel, Norma addressed the crowd of journalists and cameras with dignity and purpose. "When my husband Victor passed away 3 years ago, I lost more than my partner of 50 years. I lost my protector, my advocate, my voice in a world that increasingly dismisses the elderly as burdens rather than treasures." Her voice, amplified by the microphone, was steady and clear. "6 months ago, my son decided I could no longer care for myself. Without consultation, without consideration of alternatives, he moved me into a nursing home facility where I was to live out my remaining days." The room was silent, every eye fixed on the diminutive woman whose quiet strength commanded attention. "I was one of the lucky ones," Norma continued. "A twist of fate gave me options that most abandoned elders do not have. But what about the thousands of mothers, fathers, grandparents who sit alone in facilities across this country? Their lives reduced to scheduled meals and medication times? What about those whose children have decided they are inconvenient, whose lifetime of love and sacrifice is repaid with isolation and indifference?" She paused, looking directly into the cameras. "Today, I am establishing the Victor Winters Foundation with an initial endowment of $100 million. This foundation will provide legal advocacy for elders who wish to maintain their independence, create community housing alternatives to institutional care, and offer support to those who find themselves discarded by the very people they raised and nurtured." The announcement made national headlines. Norma's story, the abandoned mother turned multimillionaire, captured the public's imagination. Talk shows sought interviews, publishers offered book deals, film producers called Evelyn's office daily. Norma declined most requests, agreeing only to those that would bring attention to the foundation and its mission. She had no interest in celebrity. She wanted change. And what of Todd? He came to her estate 2 weeks after the press conference. Evelyn had warned her this would happen eventually. The security team alerted Norma when his car approached the gates. "Shall we turn him away, Mrs. Winters?" asked James, the head of security. Norma considered the question, her hand unconsciously moving to the locket around her neck, the one containing a small photograph of Todd as a child, the boy who had once looked at her with unrestrained love and admiration. "No," she said finally. "Let him in. Have him wait in the formal living room." She took her time descending the staircase, using the ornate railing for support. Age had not vanished with wealth. Her knees still ached, her back still protested long periods of standing. But she moved with purpose, with the dignity that money had not given her but had allowed her to reclaim. Todd stood as she entered, his face a mask of contrition. He was Victor's son in appearance, the same strong jaw, the same dimple in his left cheek when he forced a smile. But none of Victor's integrity had passed to him. "Mom," he said, his voice thick, You look wonderful." "Hello, Todd," she replied, settling into an armchair and gesturing for him to sit opposite her. "This is a surprise." He had the grace to look ashamed. "I've been trying to call you." "Have you? The nurses at Peaceful Pines mentioned nothing about it during my 3 weeks there." Todd flinched. "I can explain that, Mom. Things have been so difficult lately. Barbara's mother needed surgery, and the kids have been struggling in school and the business." "Your excuses don't interest me, Todd," Norma interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. "Nor does your sudden reappearance now that my financial situation has changed." "That's not fair," he protested. "I didn't know you'd won the lottery. How could I? I saw the press conference on TV like everyone else. And what brought you here today? Concern for my well-being? Remorse for abandoning your mother in a facility where she knew no one and had nothing of her own? Or perhaps it was the $100 million I just donated to help people like me?" Todd's face reddened. "You're my mother. Family should stick together, especially now that things are different." "Things are indeed different," Norma agreed. "I've had time to reflect on our relationship, on the choices you made when you thought I had nothing to offer but my presence, on how quickly you sold my home, the home your father and I worked for 40 years to pay off, and pocketed the proceeds." "I didn't sell it," Todd protested. "I'm managing it until you're better." "I was never sick, Todd. I was grieving. I was lonely. I needed support, not imprisonment." Tears in his eyes, regret on his tongue, talking about family and rebuilding. He even brought up the grandchildren, how they missed their grandmother, how they asked about her, constantly. But the gates had closed in Norma's heart. Not with a slam, but with a quiet, definitive click. "I'd like you to leave now," she said, when his explanations and apologies finally ran their course. "Mum, please, I'm not sending you away." "In anger, Todd. I've already forgiven you because holding on to resentment would only poison whatever time I have left. But forgiveness doesn't mean restoration of trust. It doesn't mean we continue as if nothing happened. What about the kids? Your grandchildren? They are welcome here any time. You may bring them on Sundays between 1 and 5. I'll have their favorite cookies waiting." Her voice softened. "I would never punish them for your choices." Todd stood, his face a battlefield of emotions, anger, shame, calculation. "And the will?" he finally asked, the question she had been waiting for since he arrived. Norma met his gaze steadily. "I've already updated it. The grandchildren will be well provided for through educational trusts. They'll receive their inheritance when they turn 30, old enough, I hope, to have developed character and perspective. And me? You received your inheritance early, Todd. The emergency fund that saved your business, the proceeds from my house, the monthly stipend you arranged to have transferred from my accounts to yours while I was at Peaceful Pines. Henri smiled sadly. Considerate payment for teaching me the most valuable lesson of my life, that it's never too late to start over. Have you ever been taken for granted by someone you've done everything for? Have you known someone who was? Share your experience in the comments below. The The first 6 months of Norma's new life passed in a whirlwind of activity. The Victor Winters Foundation quickly became one of the most respected elder advocacy organizations in the country. Norma hired a team of passionate professionals, social workers, attorneys, healthcare specialists, all dedicated to the Foundation's mission. Beyond financial donations, Norma gave the Foundation something even more valuable: her voice. Her story resonated with people across generations. Adult children reconsidered their plans for aging parents. Elders found courage to advocate for themselves. Politicians, sensing the shifting sentiment, began proposing legislation to strengthen elder rights. Norma's relationship with Todd remained strained but civil. True to her word, she welcomed her grandchildren every Sunday, delighting in watching 12-year-old Emma and 10-year-old Jacob explore the estate's grounds. They were innocent in all this, and in their eyes Norma saw the possibility of breaking cycles, of raising a generation that would value their elders for more than their usefulness. On a warm spring morning, Norma sat in the garden, enjoying her second cup of tea as she reviewed Foundation documents. The property was in full bloom, a riot of colors and scents that reminded her of the modest garden she had tended at her old home. "Mrs. Winters?" It was her personal assistant, Caroline, approaching with a tablet in hand. "There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent." Norma looked up, squinting slightly in the sunlight. "Who is it?" "A Mrs. Patricia Dawson. She says she used to work at Peaceful Pines." Norma set down her teacup. "Nurse Patty? Show her in, please." Minutes later, Patty appeared, looking nervous and out of place in the elegant garden. Gone was the cheerful nursing home uniform, replaced by casual civilian clothes that somehow made her seem younger. "Mrs. Winters," she said, her voice warm with genuine pleasure, "you look wonderful." Norma smiled, gesturing to the chair opposite. "Her? Please join me. Caroline, could we have another cup for our guest?" Once they were settled with fresh tea, Norma regarded her former caregiver with curiosity. "This is a lovely surprise, Patty. What brings you all the way out here?" Patty fidgeted with her teacup. "I left Peaceful Pines," she said, "about a month ago." "Oh, may I ask why?" "After you left, things changed. Or maybe they didn't. Change, maybe I just started seeing more clearly." Patty's expression hardened slightly. The way they treated people differently based on their finances, the corners they cut with care. I couldn't be part of it anymore. Norma nodded thoughtfully. "And what will you do now?" "That's partly why I'm here," Patty admitted. "I saw your interview on the morning show last week, talking about the Foundation. You mentioned expanding into training programs for elder care workers." She took a deep breath. "I've been a nurse for 22 years, Mrs. Winters. I've worked in hospitals, home health, and nursing homes. I've seen the best and worst of elder care. I thought maybe I could help." Norma studied the woman across from her, the nurse who had been the one bright spot during her time at Peaceful Pines, the one who had treated her with dignity when others saw only an old woman with fading relevance. "As it happens," Norma said slowly, "we're developing a training curriculum for care workers. Someone with your experience would be invaluable to that project." Hope bloomed in Patty's eyes. "Really? You'd consider me?" "More than consider. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you a position as our elder care training coordinator. The salary is competitive, and you'd be building something from the ground up, something that could change how our society cares for its aging population." Tears welled in Patty's eyes. "Mrs. Winters, I don't know what to say." Norma reached across the table, covering Patty's hand with her own. "Say yes, dear, we have important work to do." As spring turned to summer, the Foundation flourished under Norma's guidance. Patty proved to be an exceptional addition to the team, bringing practical knowledge and genuine compassion to the training programs. Together, they established the first Victor Winters Care Academy, offering certification courses that emphasize dignity, autonomy, and personalized care for elders. But perhaps the most significant development in Norma's life came from an unexpected source. During a foundation fundraising gala, she was approached by a distinguished gentleman with silver hair and kind eyes. "Mrs. Winters," he said, extending his hand. "Robert Coleman. I've been following your work with great interest." "Mr. Coleman," Norma replied, shaking his hand. "Thank you for supporting our cause tonight. Please, call me Robert. And I'm more than a supporter. I'm a believer. What you're doing with the foundation resonates deeply with me." He hesitated, a flash of vulnerability crossing his face. "My wife was in a care facility for the last years of her life. Alzheimer's. I visited every day, but I often wondered about those who had no one advocating for them. They talked for over an hour, finding common ground in their experiences, their values, their vision for how society should treat its elders." Robert was a retired judge who now taught part-time at the local law school, a widower with 2 adult daughters and 4 grandchildren. "Would you consider joining our board of directors?" Norma asked as the evening drew to a close. "We could use someone with your legal expertise and personal understanding of our mission." Robert smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling in a way that reminded Norma with a pang of Victor. "I'd be honored, Mrs. Winters." "Norma, please," she corrected, surprising herself. In the months that followed, Robert became Norma's closest advisor and friend. They worked together on foundation initiatives, attended cultural events and shared quiet dinners where they talked about everything and nothing. He made her laugh, something she had nearly forgotten how to do after Victor's death and Todd's betrayal. One evening in late summer, as they sat on the terrace watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, Robert turned to her with uncharacteristic seriousness. "Norma," he said, his voice soft but steady, "I need to tell you something." Her heart fluttered nervously. At 76, she thought herself well past such reactions, yet here she was, feeling like a schoolgirl. "What is it, Robert?" "These past months working with you, getting to know you, they've been the happiest I've had since losing Margaret." He took her hand gently. "I never expected to feel this way again at my age, but I find myself thinking about you constantly, looking forward to every moment we spend together." Norma's eyes filled with tears. "Robert." "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," he hastened to add. "Your friendship alone has been a gift. But I wanted you to know that, to me, you're not just the remarkable woman behind the foundation. You're simply remarkable, period." She thought of Victor then, of their 50 years together, of the life they had built, of his final words to her. "Live, Norma. Don't just exist. Live." Slowly, she turned her hand in Robert's, intertwining their fingers. "I never expected this either," she admitted. "After everything that happened with Todd, with the nursing home, I had resigned myself to solitude." "And now?" Robert asked, hope evident in his voice. Norma smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Now I'm discovering that life still has surprises in store, good ones." What will Norma do now that she's found not just financial freedom but possibly a second chance at love? Can she truly forgive Todd, or will the past continue to cast shadows over her new life? The answers await in our next chapter. As autumn painted the estate grounds in brilliant reds and golds, Norma's relationship with Robert deepened into something neither had expected to find at their age. They moved slowly, with the wisdom of those who understand that time, while precious need not be rushed. They enjoyed theatre performances and symphony concerts. They debated politics and philosophy during long dinners. They visited art galleries and historical sites, seeing them through each other's eyes. For Norma, it was both familiar and entirely new. Robert was not Victor, didn't try to be, didn't need to be. He was his own person, with his own strengths, and quirks and perspectives. Where Victor had been passionate and spontaneous, Robert was thoughtful and measured. Where Victor had filled rooms with his presence, Robert created space for others to shine. "You're smiling more," Patty observed, one afternoon as they reviewed curriculum for the Care Academy. "It suits you." Norma felt a blush creep up her cheeks. "Happiness does that, I suppose." "Judge Coleman seems like a wonderful man," Patty continued, her eyes twinkling. The way he looks at you, it's how every woman hopes to be seen. It's strange, Norma admitted. At my age, starting something new, sometimes I feel almost disloyal to Victor's memory. Patty reached across the table, squeezing Norma's hand. Mrs. Winters, Norma, do you think that's what Victor would want? For you to be alone? The question lingered with Norma that evening as she prepared for dinner with Robert. Standing before the mirror in her dressing room, she touched the locket at her throat, the one containing miniature photos of Victor and Todd, the two men who had shaped her life in such different ways. What would you think of him, Victor? She whispered to her late husband's image. Would you approve? As if in answer, a memory surfaced. Victor in his hospital bed, weak from chemotherapy, but still himself, still the man who had loved her without condition for 50 years. Promise me something, Norma, he had said, his voice raspy but urgent. Promise me you won't shut down after I'm gone. Your heart is too beautiful to lock away. She had promised, though at the time she couldn't imagine loving anyone after. Victor. Now wiping away a tear, she closed the locket and squared her shoulders. She would keep that promise tonight. Robert was waiting for her in the library, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed a legal brief for the foundation. He looked up as she entered, his face lighting up in a way that made her feel both vulnerable and powerful. Norma, he said, rising to his feet, you look lovely. She wore a simple navy dress, nothing extravagant but elegant in its simplicity. Her silver hair was styled in soft waves, and she had allowed Caroline to apply a touch of makeup. Thank you, she replied, suddenly shy. Shall we? Over dinner at an intimate restaurant in the city, Norma made her decision. When Robert walked her to her door later that evening, she invited him in for a nightcap. In the soft glow of the library fireplace, she took his hand. I've been thinking about what you said last month, she began. About your feelings for me. Robert's expression was patient, hopeful. And? Victor was the love of my life, she said simply. He always will be. But I've realized lately that the heart isn't constrained by ordinary limits. It can hold the past and present simultaneously. It can honor what was while embracing what is. She leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to his cheek. I'd like to see where this leads, Robert. Not as a replacement for what I had, but as something new, something ours. His smile was worth every moment of uncertainty she had felt. I couldn't ask for more, Norma. As November approached, bringing with it the first anniversary of the foundation, Norma faced an unexpected challenge. The quarterly financial reports showed a troubling pattern. Donations were declining, expenses were rising, and several planned initiatives were at risk of being delayed or cancelled. I don't understand, Norma said, reviewing the figures with Evelyn and the Foundation's financial director. We have sufficient endowment funds to cover all planned programs for the next 5 years. The endowment is secure, Evelyn confirmed, but we've been relying heavily on public donations for expansion projects. Those have decreased by nearly 40% since summer. Why? Norma asked, bewildered. Our work is more important than ever. The elder advocacy legislation we supported is gaining traction in 3 states. The Care Academy has a waiting list. The financial director, a pragmatic woman named Greta, cleared her throat. Mrs. Winters, I believe we're facing what I call compassion fatigue. The public embraced your story initially, the abandoned mother who won the lottery and created something meaningful. But media cycles move quickly. New causes emerge, people forget. Norma considered this, her fingers drumming lightly on the conference table. Then we need to remind them, not just of my story, but of the thousands of stories that don't make headlines, the elders who don't win lotteries but still deserve dignity and care. That afternoon she called an emergency meeting of the Foundation's leadership team. We're going to launch a new campaign, she announced, not centered on me or my experience, but on the people we serve. Faces of Wisdom, a series of portraits, hand stories of elders from all walks of life, focusing on their contributions, their challenges, and their resilience. The team mobilized quickly. Within weeks, billboards appeared across the city, featuring striking black and white photographs of elderly individuals, each accompanied by a brief, powerful statement. I taught chemistry for 40 years. Now I can't afford my own medications. I raised 5 children who live within 10 miles. I haven't seen any of them in 6 months. I built this city's bridges. Now I sleep under one. The campaign struck a chord. Donations increased. Media. Coverage resumed. The foundation's work continued and expanded. Amidst this professional triumph, Norma received an unexpected call one evening in early December. Caroline knocked softly on the library door where Norma and Robert were playing chess. "Mrs. Winters, I apologize for the interruption. There's a call for you, back from Peaceful Pines." Norma exchanged a puzzled look with Robert. "Did they say what it's regarding?" "A resident named Martha Ellis. They say she's asking for you specifically, and that it's urgent." Norma remembered Martha, a petite woman with snow-white hair who had sat next to her during meals at Peaceful Pines. Unlike many residents, Martha had no cognitive impairment, just severe arthritis that had made independent living impossible. They had bonded over shared interests in mystery novels and classical music. "I'll take it in my study," Norma said, rising. "Robert, don't you dare move any pieces while I'm gone." He raised his hands in mock surrender. "I wouldn't dream of it. I'm already losing fair and square." In her study, Norma picked up the phone. "This is Norma Winters. Mrs. Winters, this is Nurse Jenkins from Peaceful Pines. I'm calling on behalf of Martha Ellis. She's been asking for you rather insistently." "Is Martha all right?" Norma asked, concern coloring her voice. "Physically, yes, but she's distraught. There's been an incident with her son. He's moving her to a different facility tomorrow, one that's much further from the city, where her friends and church are. She says you'd understand what she's going through." Norma's grip tightened on the receiver. "Put her on, please." A moment later, Martha's tremulous voice came through. "Norma, is that really you?" "It's me, Martha. What's happening?" "David says I need more specialized care," Martha explained, her voice breaking. "But this new place, it's 2 hours away. From everything I know, I've seen the brochures. It's not a home, Norma. It's a warehouse for the dying." Norma closed her eyes, a familiar anger kindling in her chest. "Does David have power of attorney?" "Yes," Martha admitted. "I signed everything over to him after Henry died. I trusted him to do what was best for me. And have you told him you don't want to go?" "He says I don't understand what I need, that I'm being difficult and emotional." The bitterness in Martha's voice was palpable. "I'm 83, not 8. I know what I need." By the time Norma returned to the library, her decision was made. Robert looked up from the chessboard, immediately sensing the shift in her demeanor. "What is it?" he asked, rising to meet her. "A friend from Peaceful Pines needs help," Norma explained. "Her son is moving her to a facility far from everyone. She knows. She doesn't want to go but has no legal recourse." Robert's expression turned thoughtful. "The Foundation's Elder Advocacy Program might be able to help. We've been developing legal resources for exactly these situations." "Yes, but this can't wait for committees and procedures," Norma said. "They're moving her tomorrow." She paced the room, energy coursing through her despite the late hour. "I want to offer Martha a place here. This house has 6 bedrooms, and I'm using one. We have full-time nursing staff, security, everything she would need." Robert studied her face. "You're talking about turning your home into a residence for elders at risk?" "Why not?" Norma countered. "The Foundation's mission is to provide alternatives to institutional care. We've been planning a communal living pilot program for next year. Why not start it now, here, where we have all the resources already in place?" "It would require adjustments," Robert cautioned. "Legal agreements, additional staff perhaps, and Martha's son might not agree easily." Norma's jaw set in determination. "Let him try to stop us. Martha is a legally competent adult, being coerced into a living situation she doesn't want. The Foundation's legal team can fight this while we provide her safe harbor." The following morning, Norma's private car arrived at Peaceful Pines with legal documents prepared overnight by the Foundation's attorneys. Martha, tears streaming down her face, signed the papers agreeing to participate in the Winters Residence Pilot Program, effectively asserting her right to choose her own living arrangement. When David Ellis arrived 2 hours later to transport his mother to the new facility, he was met by Evelyn Harper and 2 foundation attorneys. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered after reading the documents. "Some wealthy do-gooder thinks she can just swoop in and interfere with family decisions?" "Your mother has made her own decision, Mr. Ellis," Evelyn replied coolly. "As is her right. The Winters Foundation is simply providing her with an alternative that meets her needs while respecting her wishes." "I'll fight this," David threatened. "I have power of attorney, which grants you authority to act in your mother's best interest when she cannot make decisions for herself," one of the attorneys noted. "Mrs. Ellis is of sound mind and has clearly stated her preferences. I would advise against pursuing this matter further, Mr. Ellis. The publicity would be unfortunate." By nightfall, Martha was settled in a comfortable suite at Norma's estate, overwhelmed by the turn her life had taken in 24 hours. "I can't believe this is happening," she said, as Norma showed her around the grounds. Despite her arthritis, Martha had insisted on seeing the gardens, even in their winter dormancy. "Yesterday I thought my life was over. Today is just the beginning," Norma finished for her. "For both of us." That evening, as Martha rested in her new room, Norma and Robert sat in the library, discussing the implications of what they had done. "You realize this changes everything," Robert said. "Your private home is now essentially a care facility." Norma nodded. "I know, and it feels right. This house was too big for just me anyway. Why shouldn't it serve a greater purpose? The foundation board will have questions. There are regulations, protocols, all of which we'll address," Norma assured him. "But sometimes, Robert, you have to act first and sort out the details later. Martha couldn't wait for committees to approve a pilot program. Who knows how many others are in similar situations, being moved against their will because they have no alternatives." Robert's expression softened. "This is why I love you, Norma Winters. Your heart and your backbone are equally strong." The words hung in the air between them, the first time he had spoken of love directly. Norma reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "Then, you'll support this? Even if it complicates things?" He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Every step of the way, the Winters Residence pilot program began with one participant, Martha Ellis. But news spread quickly through the elder advocacy networks the foundation had established. Within weeks, Norma received inquiries from families seeking alternatives to traditional nursing homes, from elders wanting to maintain their independence, from caregivers looking for new models of support. The foundation restructured to accommodate this unexpected development. The mansion's east wing was designated for resident rooms, with necessary modifications for safety and accessibility. Additional staff were hired: nurses, physical therapists, activity coordinators. What had begun as an impulsive rescue mission evolved into a pioneering approach to elder care, and it was working. Martha thrived in her new environment. Her arthritis pain decreased with regular therapy sessions. Her spirits lifted as she formed connections with staff and other residents who joined the program. She even began volunteering with the foundation, sharing her experiences to help develop training materials for the Care Academy. For Norma, what had started as a personal vindication, proof that elders need not be warehoused and forgotten, had become something far more significant, a model for how society might reimagine its relationship with aging. As Christmas approached, bringing with it the first snow of the season, Norma stood by the library window, watching white flakes swirl against the darkening sky. The mansion grounds had been transformed into a winter wonderland, festive lights twinkling among the snow-laden trees. Inside, the scent of pine and cinnamon permeated the air, a massive Christmas tree dominating the main hall. This would be her first Christmas since winning the lottery, since escaping Peaceful Pines, since starting the foundation, since meeting Robert. So much had changed in one remarkable year. The sound of laughter drifted from the East Wing, where residents and staff were decorating cookies for tomorrow's holiday party. Martha's voice rose above the others, clear and joyful, as she instructed someone on the proper technique for icing snowmen. Footsteps approached behind her, and Norma turned. to find Robert, a wrapped gift in his hands. "I know we agreed to exchange presents tomorrow," he said, "but I wanted to give you this one privately." Norma accepted the small package, carefully unwrapping the silver paper. Inside was a velvet box, and within that, a delicate silver bracelet. Hanging from it were 3 charms: a house, a tree, and a heart. "The house represents the home you've created, not just for yourself, but for all who find shelter here," Robert explained. "The tree symbolizes growth and renewal, and the heart—" He paused, taking her hand. "The heart is a reminder of the love that flourishes when we least expect it, even in winter." Tears welled in Norma's eyes. "It's beautiful, Robert." "Thank you." He fastened the bracelet around her wrist, his touch gentle and sure. "There's something else I want to discuss with you, Norma. Something important." She looked up, curious. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about the future, our future. The program is expanding, the foundation is growing, your vision is becoming reality. But I wonder if you've considered what you want for yourself beyond all of this." Norma considered the question. "I thought I knew," she said slowly. "After Victor died, after Todd abandoned me, I thought my life was essentially over. Then the lottery changed everything, gave me purpose again." "And now?" Robert prompted. "Now I know that purpose is important, but it's not everything." She touched the heart charm on her new bracelet. "What I want for myself is balance, to continue the work we're doing with the foundation, to help others like Martha, but also to live fully in whatever time I have left. To experience joy, adventure, love." She met his gaze steadily. "With you, if that's what you want too." Robert's smile was radiant. "It is, very much." He took a deep breath. "Which brings me to my question. Norma Winters, would you consider making our partnership official, not just as foundation colleagues or as companions, but as husband and—" "Wife?" Norma's heart leapt in her chest, a sensation so youthful it almost made her laugh. At 76, being proposed to was the last thing she had expected. "Are you sure?" she asked. "At our age?" "That's precisely why I'm sure," Robert replied. "At our age, we understand the value of time, the importance of seizing happiness when we find it. We know better than to wait for someday." Norma thought. Of Victor then, not with grief but with gratitude for the half-century they had shared, and the strength he had helped her discover in herself. She thought of Todd and the painful lesson his betrayal had taught her about resilience. She thought of the unexpected journey that had brought her to this moment, from abandoned mother to lottery winner, to elder advocate to a woman being offered a second chance at love. "Yes," she said simply, "yes, I would be honored to marry you, Robert." The small wedding took place on New Year's Eve in the mansion's conservatory, transformed into a winter garden with white roses and twinkling lights. Martha served as Norma's matron of honor. Robert's daughters and grandchildren attended, along with foundation staff and the growing community of residents who now called the Winters estate home. Against all expectations, Todd came too, bringing Emma and Jacob. He stood awkwardly at the back during the ceremony, but approached his mother at the reception, his expression a complex mixture of emotions. "You look happy, Mom," he said, his voice strained but sincere. "He seems like a good man." "He is," Norma confirmed. "Thank you for coming, Todd. It means a lot to have all my family here today." It was the closest they had come to reconciliation since their confrontation months earlier. Not forgiveness exactly, but an acknowledgement that blood connections, while damaged, remained. When the clock struck midnight, marking not just a new year, but a new chapter, Robert raised his glass to toast his bride. "To Norma," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "who taught us all that it's never too late for transformation, never too late for justice, never too late for love." The assembled guests echoed the toast, glasses clinking as snowflakes danced beyond the conservatory. Windows. Norma looked around at the unlikely family she had created, not from obligation or tradition, but from choice and purpose. Martha with her bright eyes and creative spirit, Patty with her dedication to compassionate care, the foundation team with their commitment to changing how society views aging, the residents who had found not just housing, but community under her roof, and Robert, whose hand held hers with the promise of companionship, for whatever time they had left. 1 year ago, she had sat alone in a nursing home room, abandoned and forgotten, watching the lottery numbers that would change her life. She had used that change to help others like her, to build something meaningful from her pain. But perhaps the greatest transformation had been within herself, from a woman who believed her story was ending, to one who understood it was simply taking an unexpected turn. As the celebration continued around her, Norma thought about all the elders still waiting for their voices to be heard, their dignity to be recognized. The Foundation's work was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead, battles to fight, systems to change. But tonight was for joy. Tonight was for marking a journey that had begun in abandonment and culminated in belonging. Tonight was for recognizing that sometimes the worst moment of your life can lead to the best, if you refuse to let it define you. "Happy New Year, Mrs. Coleman," Robert whispered in her ear as they swayed gently to the music. Norma smiled up at her new husband, her heart full. "Happy new beginning," she replied. "For every mother who is used until she's inconvenient, for every widow discarded the moment her hand stopped giving, know this: you are not invisible. You are not done. And one day, the world will remember what it forgot, the strength of a woman they tried to leave behind." Congratulations. Type 9 in the comments so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.